everybody, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Teri and I typically do nail related videos on this channel. However, I am doing a different type of video today, just sharing my experience on how I got pregnant pretty quickly after I had a pregnancy loss or a miscarriage. So if that interests you, just keep on watching. I'm going to be talking about like the steps I took when I was trying to conceive, what I did after my miscarriage, and how I got pregnant like a couple months after I had a miscarriage. So let's just get started. Hopefully this video won't be too long. I also want to share with you some of my 2-week wait symptoms I had during my first pregnancy before I had the miscarriage. And then I'll share like some of the symptoms I had during this current pregnancy. I'm currently 22 weeks pregnant with my rainbow baby. It is a baby boy. Really excited. I will be a first-time mom at 33 years old. And it was just important for me to put this video out talking about my miscarriage as well, because April 7th, 2023 would have been my due date for the baby that I lost. So I really wanted to put out this video, hopefully to help anyone who has gone through a miscarriage and is trying to get pregnant again. So going back to November 2021, I got off my birth control. I was using the NuvaRing at the time, and I was just tired of birth control, and I knew me and my husband were going to start trying to have a baby within the next, 6, 7, 8 months. I was a PhD candidate, so I was in like my last semester of school. Well, the spring semester would have been my last semester. I was supposed to graduate in May of 2022. However, I ended up graduating in August. But anyways, so the plan was to start trying after I graduated, because I knew I was going to be under a lot of stress trying to finish everything up for my PhD. So I got off birth control. I wanted to, let my cycles get back to normal, and I wanted to start tracking my cycles on my phone. I've always used like my iPhone for several years to track my cycles just to see what was normal for me. And I wanted to get off birth control, let my cycles get back to normal, and just kind of see how long my cycles were and when I ovulated and all that good stuff. So I got off birth control. We just started using condoms. And I was tracking my cycles using my phone. So kind of in May, I started listening to podcasts about birth, just kind of preparing myself on what birth was like, what I needed to do to prepare for getting pregnant and stuff like that. And I learned that I needed to be on prenatal vitamins about 3 months before you start trying. So, I just went to Target, got some gummy prenatal vitamins, and started taking those every day. So like I said, I was tracking my cycles using my iPhone, and it was 30 days. I was having 30-day cycles, which is pretty typical for me. It's usually plus or minus 1. So in May, like I said, I was really close to finishing my PhD. I was supposed to graduate in May, but I ended up having to push it back to graduating in the summer, so in August of 2022. And I was really stressed out at this time, and I was drinking a lot of caffeine, and I was not getting a lot of sleep because I had so much stuff to do. But what I had noticed is that in May, my cycle was a lot longer than 30 days. It was closer to 40 days, which was really not typical for me. My cycles are typically usually 29 or 30 days. And, I finally got my period after that 40-day cycle, and I was like, okay, what's going on? I was like, maybe it's just a fluke. So in June, again, I was coming up on 40 days of my cycle again for June. And I was like, okay, something's wrong. And I was getting nervous because I knew me and my husband were going to start trying to have a baby when I graduated. So I needed to figure out what was going on with my cycles, why they were being so extended. So in June, I scheduled an appointment at the Women's Health Center and saw a certified midwife there and told her what was going on, that, you know, my last cycle was 40 days, which is not typical for me. And this current cycle that I was on, excuse me, I was like on day 42, and, you know, I haven't started my period yet. And I told her me and my husband, we were gonna start trying to have a baby soon, and, you know, I wanted to know what was going on with my cycle. So she started, you know, talking to me about PCOS, and she's like, it could possibly be PCOS. Or it could be stress, because I told her, you know, I was about to graduate. I was under a lot of stress. And she said it could be stress. Stress, you know, can cause you to have longer cycles. But she wanted to set me up to get some blood tests so I could get my hormones tested to make sure they're like in the normal range. And she also told me about ovulation kits. She wanted me to track my ovulation to see if I was ovulating. So she told me about like the Clear Blue digital kits, but she's like, those are kind of expensive. So I kind of researched when I got home, and ended up getting a very affordable kit on Amazon. I'll link it in the description box. It has really great reviews, and I really like the kit as well. They're just cheapy little strips, but the whole kit was like $20. And you get a whole bunch of ovulation tests as well as like a whole bunch of pregnancy tests. So I ended up getting that one. But anyway, that same day I saw the midwife. I also went to get my blood collected, and they tested me. They tested my FSH and LH hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, T4, my thyroid hormone, just a lot of different hormones, and it all came back normal. She also prescribed me some progesterone to take. She said I could either wait till my period started, or I could take the progesterone pills and it would, you know, start my period. But luckily I actually started my period the next day at like 43 day, having a 43 day cycle. I finally started my period. I also started using the ovulation kits after my period was over to track my ovulation. The ovulation test strips I was using were by Easy at Home, and they told me to download the Premom app on my phone, which I did. And with this app, you're able to like scan your little ovulation strips, and it's able to like give you a reading, and it tells you, you know, if your LH hormone is low or if it's high, if you're ovulating, if you're at your peak, and all that good stuff. So I downloaded the app, and I also ended up buying a BBT thermometer, or a basal body temperature thermometer, to use with the app as well, so I can see when I ovulated based on my temperature. And you know, I was ovulating, everything was good. And you know, it was kind of cool. It was like a little science experiment, and you know, I'm I guess scientist, so so I thought it was really interesting using the ovulation kits. So I finally got my peak ovulation around day 15 that cycle. And you know, I told my husband, I was like, this is my peak. So we actually, you know, ended up trying like on my ovulation day and then the day after ovulation. I put that in my app. App lets you track like when you have sex, your symptoms, your basal body temperature, your ovulation test, everything. It's a pretty cool app. And then I entered my 2-week wait. So if you don't know what a 2-week wait is, that's the time between when you ovulated to the time your next period would start. You ovulate, and then about 14 days later, your period should starting your next cycle. But if you're pregnant, you obviously would not start your next cycle because you're pregnant. So started my 2-week wait, and I recorded some of the symptoms I was experiencing. during this time. So I was using my Premom app to record like some of the symptoms I was experiencing during my 2-week wait. So I didn't record every day, it's just random days. So 4 days post-ovulation, I wrote down I felt fatigue, cramps, and bloating. But bloating was something that I experienced pretty much from ovulation day on until I found out I was actually pregnant. So I just had like pretty extreme bloating. At 7 days post-ovulation, I had mild constipation, mild fatigue. I was having acne, which is not uncommon for me because my skin is just not the greatest. I had severe bloating, and I definitely noticed increased urination. And then that night, I remember being in bed that night at 7 DPO, and like I just felt these cramps. They weren't too bad, but it stood out to me because I don't typically get cramps. And I was only 7 DPO. Like, I knew I wasn't about to start my period, and it was just very strange. I was like, why am I getting cramps right now? So I think that was like the start of implantation cramping. That night I just really like noticed that I was cramping. So 8 DPO, I wrote down I had moderate fatigue, I had acne, I still had some cramps, like mild cramping, like towards the morning. And then I was bloated and I was a little bit gassy, so I was like burping a lot, which is again slightly unusual for me. At 9 DPO, I had constipation, fatigue, acne, cramps, bloating, and again I was gassy, so still burping. 10 DPO, I had like a backache, bloating, and then I had allergy-like symptoms. So my nose was running, it was just dripping, and I was sneezing, and I had frequent burping again. And then 11 DPO, pretty much the same symptoms: bloating, gassy, frequent urination. And at 11 DPO, I like couldn't wait any longer, and I just decided to take one of the cheapy pregnancy tests that were in the ovulation kits. And you know, there was 2 lines, so I was actually pregnant. That's the day I found that I was pregnant. I was super shocked. I told my husband, and we were both shocked because it was like our first month trying, and you know, they say it could take up to a year to get pregnant, and we weren't expecting to find out that we were pregnant so soon. Sorry, I'm stuffy. I have pregnancy rhinitis. I've had it my whole pregnancy, so please excuse that. So I found out I was pregnant at about 3 weeks, and then when I was 5 weeks pregnant, we told like 4 people basically. I was pregnant at 5 weeks, and then like pretty much that next week when I was 6 weeks pregnant, that is when I had my miscarriage. So I just kind of want to go into like a little bit of details about my miscarriage. So the day before I had my miscarriage, you know, I was like maybe 5 weeks and 6 days, or yeah, 5 weeks, 6 days. It was the day before, you know, I had woken up. I was kind of having insomnia at this point. I wasn't really able to sleep that well at night. So, you know, I woke up in the morning. I got up in the morning, went to the bathroom, and then as I was wiping, you know, I looked at the toilet paper, and I did notice that there was like a little drop of like bright red blood on the toilet paper. And, you know, I was like, oh, that's weird. That's not supposed to happen. So I kept wiping, and I didn't see any more blood after that initial first drop. So I was like, okay, you know, I just went to the bathroom and just like, okay, it was just like a little fluke. I'm not seeing any more blood, but I'm gonna monitor it the rest of the day. So I didn't see any more blood the rest of the day. So, you know, I was like, okay, everything's fine. Then the next morning, again, I woke up in the morning, went to the bathroom, and this time I wiped. There was more blood when I wiped on my toilet paper. So at this point, you know, I messaged my certified midwife and I let her know, because I had told her I was pregnant at this point too. I forgot about that. I told her I was pregnant. And she had told me, like, if I ever had any questions or any problems, to reach out to her. So, you know, I emailed her that morning and I was like, hey, you know, the past 2 mornings I've noticed blood on the toilet paper. So she scheduled an appointment for me to come in later that day. So I did. I also had put a panty liner in my underwear because, you know, throughout the day as I was using the restroom, I was seeing blood when I wiped. So I just put a panty liner in to catch anything. And I went for my appointment and, you know, told her what was going on. She like did a pelvic exam on me. And by doing the pelvic exam, she was like, hey, there's a lot of blood up there. I think you're having a miscarriage. So obviously, you know, I was upset, started crying in the office. And you know, she was trying to comfort me. And she was just like, hey, this is pretty common. Like, I don't know, 10 to 15% of women have at least one miscarriage. You know, I heard that a lot, like, but that's really not helpful. She just told me to keep monitoring it. She also scheduled me to have an HCG blood test taken that day and then 2 days later, because we wanted to see if my HCG levels would double. And if they would double, you know, the pregnancy would be fine. But if we saw the HCG levels decrease, then we know that I was having a miscarriage. You know, I took the blood test and, you know, got my results back for that day. They're in normal range of with being 6 weeks pregnant. They were in normal range for that day. But that Wednesday night is when I actually had the miscarriage. Like, that's when, like, most of the bleeding happened, like heavy period like bleeding happened that night. I was also having very intense cramps, like very intense cramps. Like I had to take some Tylenol to, you know, kind of deal with the pain a little bit more. And like I couldn't go to sleep that night. So I just like stayed on the couch while my husband was like in the bed, because like I could not like lay down and go to sleep. It was pretty painful. It was like I was going through like contractions, you know. I've never had contractions before, so I can't like 100% say I was going through contractions, but that's what it felt like to me, like very intense cramps. Like I could not sleep through it. My body was just like going through that miscarriage. And then the next morning, or yeah, I think it was in the morning. The next morning, I actually like passed out the tissue from the baby, which was kind of traumatizing. Like I was not expecting that either. But yeah, it was just basically like I had given birth at like 6 weeks. My midwife told me, you know, to wait 4 weeks after having the miscarriage to start trying again. She wanted to make sure that the HCG levels had gone all the way down before we started trying again. So that's what we did. It probably took me like 10 days. And then, you know, I stopped bleeding, and then we were told not to have sex for 2 weeks. And then after that to just use protection. But yeah. So we didn't start trying to have another baby until September. I had the miscarriage August 10th. And then September, we were able to start trying again. So we did try again that cycle. We did not get pregnant. That cycle, we actually got pregnant the cycle after that. So I ovulated October 31st. So Halloween is when I ovulated. You know, we tried to get pregnant that cycle, and that is cycle. I did get pregnant. I found out I was pregnant on November 13th. I think I was 13 days DPO, days post ovulation at that time. That's when I found out I was pregnant with my current baby. So we did get pregnant pretty quickly after having that miscarriage. I've heard like you are more fertile after a miscarriage, also after you have a baby, but yeah, I don't know how scientifically proven that is, but that's what I've heard. Okay, so like I said, I'm currently 22 weeks pregnant right now with my rainbow baby boy. So excited to be a first-time mom, but I kind of wanted also to share with you my 2-week wait symptoms for this current baby. I didn't monitor the symptoms as much because I didn't want to kind of like get my hopes up and be disappointed. So I try not to focus too much on the symptoms, but there are some things that I did remember, you know, after I found out I was pregnant, you know, that I went through. I just didn't, you know, separate it into days post ovulation. I had my peak ovulation. I was still using the ovulation kits so I can monitor when I actually ovulated. So I had my peak ovulation on October 30th. I ovulated on October 31st. And then I did note that on 5 days post ovulation, I had a sore throat. And I was like really upset because I was like, dang, now I'm getting sick. That probably means that I'm not pregnant this cycle. But it was like really weird because I only had a sore throat for 1 day. And it was like, that's like never happened to me before. I've never just had a sore throat for 1 day and then I was fine the next day. But yeah, it was a weekend. I remember it was like a Saturday. I think it was a Saturday. And I just like stayed in bed all day and I wasn't feeling well. Then the next day I was completely normal and fine. And I was like, okay, that's weird. I think the next day I started feeling like mild cramps and I was like, this could possibly be implantation. But again, I didn't want to get my hopes up. So I was like, I don't know, maybe I'm just like imagining things. I was also bloated, but I'm always bloated during like, is it the luteal phase? Or is it the follicular phase? Yeah, luteal phase is the second half of the cycle, I believe. But I'm always bloated, like, you know, after ovulation. So I was also like burping a lot again, and I was urinating a lot. I usually don't go to the bathroom at night, but I was waking up in the middle of the night having to go to the bathroom. So those are all the symptoms I wrote down. Like I said, I try not to focus too much on the symptoms. I also didn't take a pregnancy test until like 13 DPO. We had went out of town and I was like, I'm not taking any pregnancy tests with me. I'm just going to like relax and not stress about it. But yeah, I did find out I was pregnant on 13 DPO when I got back from our trip. And it was exciting, but I will say I was not excited. I was not as excited as I was the first time we found out I was pregnant. I guess something like after you have a miscarriage, like it's like the excitement is there, but it's kind of not there because in the back of your mind, you're thinking like, is this going to be a viable pregnancy? Like, is this going to happen to me again? So I was nervous. I was like really anxious going through like the first few weeks. I was just nervous. And you know, when I would go to the bathroom, I would be like inspecting the toilet paper, like looking for any signs of blood. Like it was not fun. Like, yeah, I was excited, but I couldn't really enjoy it because I was just anxious about it. And, you know, I scheduled my first prenatal appointment. They couldn't schedule me until like 8 weeks. So I had to wait a really long time to get my first appointment, to get my first ultrasound. And it was just like, it was a hard 8 weeks. Like it was so slow and I was so nervous. And even going to that appointment, I was so nervous. Like I was like, are we gonna see something on the ultrasound? Like I'm scared. But we saw the fetus on the ultrasound right away. And it was just like a huge relief to see like the fetus on the ultrasound, and it was measuring correctly at 8 weeks. It was like we were like measuring like 1 day behind, which is fine. And you know, the heartbeat was like 176 beats per minute. It was like a really strong, fast heartbeat. And we saw the yolk sac and all that stuff. Everything was good. So that was really, really exciting. Sorry, the embryos. The embryo until like 10 weeks, I think. And then it's called a fetus. So we were able to see the embryo at 8 weeks. And it was really exciting. We got to get our little first pictures, hear the heartbeat, and everything was looking great. So I want to do another video talking about my first trimester symptoms, because this video is probably already like way too long. So look out for that video of my first trimester symptoms. Like, I'm currently in my second trimester. So hopefully I'll do, you know, another video on my second trimester symptoms when I enter my third trimester, because it's just a whole another level of undesirable symptoms. And I just want to share that with you because some of my symptoms I think were a little bit different, maybe. Well, at least they're not as talked about as, you know, some of the other symptoms that people usually talk about. So I want to do a separate video for that. And if you're interested in that, please subscribe to my channel. Like I said, I usually do nail videos, but I do want to kind of have like a documentation of this to help other people. So also with my current pregnancy, I didn't tell anybody besides my husband, of course, that I was pregnant until 10 weeks this time. So I really wanted to wait until after we did the first appointment, the first ultrasound, but we still kind of waited like like a couple weeks after that before we told anybody. And when I started telling people, they were like, "Oh yeah, we knew you were pregnant." And I was like, "Wait, what? How did y'all know I was pregnant?" Like, we don't even live in the same state, so they haven't seen me. Well, they did see me before I actually tested, because when I said I went out of town, we went back to, you know, our home state, and we went to a wedding basically. So they saw me when I was like in those really early stages, like before I actually tested to see if I was pregnant. But somehow they knew that I was pregnant. So who knows? Who knows how they knew? Parents, I guess. It's not that I was scared to tell people, but I just like didn't want to tell people and get disappointed again. So I don't really think it's a good idea to not tell anybody until after the second trimester. Like, I don't agree with that, but I understand, like, if you have been through a miscarriage, that it is kind of like scary to, you know, tell other people when you're like just trying to like make it every day. But yeah, thankfully I have really good a really good support system. I had like a lot of people at church praying for me, just to kind of take away that fear and anxiety of having another miscarriage. And that helped a lot. And I was just like really focused on being grateful, like, for my pregnancy. So like every day I'd be like, thank you, God, that I'm able to carry this baby another day. I don't do that as much now. I'm way less like anxious about it, but I do try to do it every now and then still. Just like, I'm so thankful that I'm able to carry this baby, and just really showing gratitude and having people pray for you. It's just like really helpful to kind of take away that anxiety of having another miscarriage. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment. Let me know your experiences with your first pregnancy. Have you ever been through a miscarriage? What were some of the symptoms that you've experienced? And yeah, let me know in the comment section. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.